Hey everyone. I recently did a video on how to build the perfect nymph box, those core patterns that are ultimately the workhorse of your box. So what happens when you have that core box? How do we add to that? How do we put flies in that complement that core box? So there's really four types of different flies that complement a core box, and that's attractor patterns, situational bugs or seasonal bugs, and junk flies. So I'm going to break down each one. I'm going to give you suggestions of the patterns that I use and really my reasoning why I use each one of these patterns. And in the description of this video, I'll make sure that I put links to all of these different bugs to help you tie these patterns. So the first category are attractor patterns. These are flashy flies that really stand out. They really pop in the water. It can be done through different types of dubbing, crystal flash, bright thread, things that make a bug look bold in the water. In my experience, they're either feast or famine. There's a lot of different factors that really come into play when I think about using an attractor pattern. A lot of times it's water clarity. It might be the pressure that the stream gets, maybe time of the year. I find that in really pressured streams, when you're in peak season, attractor patterns might not work as well, but then you get to the same streams this time of year in the winter time when you have lower bug activity and they really work. I found out, water clarity, I can fish some streams up in the Northeast, Connecticut, Vermont, and Maine, where they have that really tannic color water. Attractor patterns work great there. So my suggestion is, look at the attractor patterns that you like or you're interested in, tie a few tester patterns, go out to your water, and then find out if you really have confidence in them. Once you do, then you put them into your box. I say this all the time. When you choose a new pattern, it has to earn its way into your box. Just don't tie a bunch and then find out you don't like it. Have a few tester patterns, have them earn their way into your box. So what attractor patterns do I like? It's really 5 patterns, and there are a ton of them out there you can choose from, but these are patterns that I have tons of confidence in. I'll give you a few more suggestions of patterns you may want to check out, but the ones that I love are Devin Olson's blowtorch. I tie his, and these are the ones you can find in the Fulling Mill catalog, but I'll tie his more traditional blowtorch and a hare's ear blowtorch. I tie them in size 16s, 14s, and size 12s. The workhorse and the bulk of them are size 14s, 2 8 beads, 3 3 beads, and 3 8 beads. Three other patterns that I really like, I go the opposite way. I like them smaller. They're all Perdigons. 2 of them are Devin Olson's. They're his light bright Perdigons in the Butano and a Peacock light bright. Love those bugs. Size 18s, 16s, and I'll tie them in 20s as well. And I also like Pat Weiss's Penny Perigon. Once again, 20s, 18s, 16s, 2 mil beads, 2 3 beads, and 2 8 beads. I like these small Perdigons. A lot of times, especially in faster water, they'll just pop a little more and stand out. Especially if you have a lot of bug activity, you'd be surprised. Sometimes those little Perdigons are just enough to trigger a strike from a trout. So just check out some attractor Perdigons. So the second type of bug that I want to talk about is a seasonal pattern. What is a seasonal pattern? Well, these are bugs that you're not going to find in early spring or you're not going to find in the winter time. Patterns like terrestrials, ants, inchworms, things like that. I love an ant pattern, but I don't carry them in my box in the wintertime. So these seasonal patterns come in and out of my box. I just put them in when I need them and I take them out so I don't have them taking up space. So I love an ant pattern, especially when we get into the late spring through the summer and fall. You're always going to see an ant pattern in my box. I think it is an exceptional seasonal pattern. I tie them in 16s and 14s, 2 mil beads, 2 3 beads, and 2 8 beads. So another seasonal bug is an egg pattern. Now, a lot of people consider egg patterns junk flies. I don't really like that term, even though I'm using it for the purpose of this video. I don't really like that term junk flies because to me you use them under certain circumstances, and to me an egg pattern is a seasonal type of bug. In the wintertime, egg patterns just simply work. But this is a bug I don't use 12 months out of the year. I start putting it in my box in the fall, and it stays in my box until spring, and then I take them back out. So I don't use, a lot of guys use egg patterns year round, but I'm a big believer. Once the bug activity really peaks, you just don't need an egg pattern. But I think they play an important part during the winter time especially. So the egg pattern that I like the best is an Umpqua fly. It's called the Sunny Side Up. It's a pattern by Hans Mylant. He's a signature tyer there. I met Hans at the Denver Fly Fishing Show last year. He gave me a couple of these patterns, and it's the best egg pattern I've ever fished. I mean, it is a perfect representation of an egg. Size, it's just great. A lot of people like using ecstasy, which works, but in my opinion, the Sunny Side Up egg really works great. You should check it out. So let's talk about situational patterns. A lot of junk flies are, to me, they're just situational patterns. You need bugs in your box that under certain circumstances, they're gonna help you out. And it's usually condition based. Wind, a lot of it has to do with water clarity. When we are in adverse conditions, when you've got high water, heavy flows, off color to even muddy, we have to have patterns in the box that work better under circumstances like that. So when we have a lot of wind, to me, a mop fly is a great pattern in the wind. A mop fly is big. The mop material absorbs water. So what happens is it really does a great job. The bead weight and the material, it just does a great job of anchoring your drift in windy conditions, and it just slows it down. So anytime I'm nymphing in super windy conditions, I put a mop fly on. A mop fly is also great when you've nymphed a run and say you're in deeper water. Sometimes before you leave and you're trying to squeak another couple fish out of that run, a lot of times if you put a mop on, it's going to give you a different drift because once again, it just kind of slows it down a little bit more. Another time where a mop fly really works great is when we're nymphing. A lot of times when you get late in the day, late in the evening, almost before dark, if there's not any bug activity on top, sometimes nymphing just shuts down. I found out a lot of times if you put a mop fly on and you're nymphing in those really low light conditions, it just stands out, and you'd be surprised how many trout will hit the mop when it's almost dark. It's a great bug to have in your box. I tie them in one size. It's a size 12, and I use two colors, and that's it. It's either a tan or a cream, and I tie them in chartreuse. And I tie them all 3/8 beads and 4 mil beads. That's all I tie a mop in. And to me, they look like a big caddis or a big crane fly. So check out a mop. It's a great pattern to have. So another situation that we encounter on the stream where it's really important to have certain bugs for those conditions is really off color or murky water, or even muddy. Don't think that trout won't bite in muddy water, because they absolutely will. The largest brown trout I've ever caught was in water that everybody was turning around going home on. It was on a famous stream and the water was muddy. It was, I'm talking chocolate milk, coffee with creamer in it. Picture that. And it was a 27-inch brown trout I caught on a squirmy worm. So that is a pattern that I love to use when the water is high, off color, or even muddy. A squirmy worm. It is one of those patterns that just really adds a lot of contrast, stands out, and you actually get movement from the squirmy as well. So I tie in one size 12, 2 8 beads, 3 3, and 3 8. You do want to have some heavier bugs because typically when we're fishing in circumstances like that, the water tends to be higher and a little bit heavier flow. So have some heavier ones in the box. Also, some of those more traditional patterns that you tie there in your core box, you want in dark brown, or even black. I tie a lot of black waltz worms, larger patterns, 14s and 12s for murky conditions. I'll use my stone pony. I'll tie it in a black, once again for those off-color conditions. So you have to have bugs that have a lot of contrast in those really murky, muddy conditions, and it's usually bugs that are darker. So make sure you have those patterns in your box. Now, these patterns, they're not always in my box. I kind of put them in as needed, take them out when I don't need them. So I don't like to carry every single bug I have out there in the stream. So if I'm fishing, if I'm out there for a week and the water's perfect and the conditions are perfect, I'm not carrying these bugs with me. So they kind of go in and out of the box as needed. I will tell you this, a squirmy worm also works great in the winter time. But once again, I don't have this in my box in mid-May when it's peak bug activity and the conditions are great. So that's just me. I know guys that carry squirmies all the time, but for me, squirmies work in off color and in the winter time. So all of these patterns that I've talked about, attractor patterns, seasonal patterns, the junk flies or the situational flies, all of these patterns are meant to complement that core box. So when you have all of these patterns, you're really ready for anything that you encounter out on the stream. And that's what's so important. You have to have bugs that every time you go to the stream, no matter what the conditions are, you're just ready to go. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'm happy to help you out. If you liked it, I'd appreciate if you give me a thumbs up. And as always, tight lines, everybody. I'll talk to you later.